This customer's Jeep came in because it had a noise from the front drivetrain, and the traction control light is always on after the customer had installed a lift kit on it together with a friend the weekend prior. And the owner of this car was very confident that the timing belt had been done recently, because the sticker on the engine said so. The mechanic had a look and found this. This customer had installed a LED underglow kit all by himself, and when asked about the way he had installed it, he just went, "Hey man, if it works, it works!" And the owner of this car had been on his way to a buddy's place when the engine started making a new sound, and then stopped making any sound at all. The oil pan underneath had a hole in it, and it turns out that the oil had moved out quite a while ago. This customer came in to have the mechanic check his car out before buying it. Apparently, the current owner had stated that she was roadworthy in the ad. And the owner of this car came in complaining about a humming noise and vibrating seats when driving on the highway. Customer came in saying that my rear tires keep wearing out on one side faster than the other. Is that a tire brand thing? And this car came in for an oil change when a mechanic noticed that the customer had done some body and paint work on it all by himself. This car came in because the customer complained about weird noises coming from their differential. And this car rolled in for a routine inspection when the mechanic grabbed the rotor and found it doing things a rotor really shouldn't be doing. Customer states, "Hit what seemed to be a stick horse on my way to work, but damn thing must have been made of titanium." This customer came in saying, "Had my nephew look over the front end last week and he tightened everything up. Feels a little different now, but I'm sure that's just because everything is tight." Customer states, "I ran over a small piece of wood on the highway. Could you check how it's looking underneath?" And this mechanic found a spindle situation that he had genuinely never seen before in his career, and the wheel bearing behind it wasn't feeling too great either. Customer states, "My engine feels sluggish." The technician found that the last time the owner had changed the oil and filter was 1999. The owner of this Lincoln came in after he had tried installing a new fuel pump by himself, but had just caused a mess and had to come in to get some proper help. The owner of this car was very confident the car was safe to drive despite the rust because it had always driven in a straight line. The mechanic took it for a short roll in the lot when the rear wheel went full autopilot on him. This truck came in for a pre-purchase inspection after the current owner had said, "Don't worry, she's just fine underneath." And this customer came in saying, "Parked on the grass last night and now the car won't move. Could be a flat maybe?" And this is what a blown turbo looks like. Customer states, asked for a wheel alignment and also to remove the unidentified object hanging from his tow hitch. And this exhaust system had been designed by someone who clearly had a vision. Whether or not that vision worked, however, is a different story. And this car had some suspension work done at another shop, but had to come in because of a pretty bad noise. The owner of this car rolled in saying that the brakes make a sound but they work fine and that he just needs to check the rear drums because his father-in-law said they might need new shoes. Customer states, "It's a bit noisy when I hit the brakes." Customer states, "Car doesn't want to start, has tried everything under the sun." Can you help this customer figure out what the problem might be? And this car rolled in with quite the list of problems, even though the customer said he just wanted some new exhaust clamps. This car didn't come with a trailer hitch, so the customer just welded one on by themselves. Customer states, engine is seized. Customer states, car wouldn't start this morning, so my older brother came over and put some new coils in. She fires up now but runs a little uneven. Can you take a quick look at it? Customer states, my back door is loose. The owner of this car came in because his braking power still hadn't improved much, even after he replaced brake calipers and pads by himself. Apparently, he had forgotten to install new discs. The mechanic who lifted this one found the undercarriage had taken a pretty serious hit at some point, with a bent exhaust and a silicone patch on the oil pan that was doing its absolute best to hold things together. Customer states, was driving a bit on a dirt road, but ever since my car clunks a whole lot more than normal. The mechanic working on this one didn't quite know where to start. No front spoiler, a pretty beat up rim, and loose wires hanging everywhere in the engine bay. Someone had been very busy, and not in a good way. This car came in because the customer had tried changing his own brake pads, but had accidentally put the backing plates on so they were rubbing against the discs, which caused quite the problem. Customer states, my hands get tired real fast on long drives, so my fiance got me these. I should be fine if I get pulled over, right? Customer states, car lock doesn't always do what I want it to do. Please advise. The owner of this car had been driving around on what he described as a slowly deflating tire for about 3 weeks, convinced there was a nail in it somewhere, and had already bought a plug kit, a portable compressor, and a new spare before bringing it in. This technician said that the customer had bought this Audi from an auction and insisted on only having the oil level sensor fixed. This customer rolled in saying that the interior lights had just stopped working all of a sudden. And the owner of this Tesla had figured out how to never worry about EV range ever again. It's actually quite simple, you just need a trailer hitch. This Dodge Durango came in for an inspection after the owner had just purchased it the night before. Apparently, he had forgotten to bring a flashlight and ended up paying over $10,000 for it. The owner of this car rolled in because they had a loud squeaking sound when braking after their uncle had installed some new brake pads for them for cheap. The mechanic noticed that they had gotten the wrong brake pads, but instead of getting new ones, they just improvised a bit. This customer was absolutely certain the noise was just road noise because he had new tires put on last month. The mechanic grabbed the wheel, gave it a rock, and found the wheel bearing looking like this. This older customer had apparently just gotten his first electric car and came in because he thought it was time for an oil change. This customer came in with a rough sounding engine after an oil change at a quick lube shop. The mechanic found out whoever did the job had accidentally put transmission fluid in the engine instead of engine oil. The owner of this car was absolutely certain that the front end work that his stepdad had done was solid. The mechanic grabbed the wheel and found the lower control arm was barely attached to anything. And these mechanics were just about to work on this car's suspension when they made a shocking discovery. The owner of this BMW had apparently been driving on what he described as a slight wobble for the better part of 3 weeks before coming in. And this car rolled in with quite the list of expensive issues. And this Toyota came in for a frame recall, but I don't know if there's anything left to recall. Customer came in saying that the car had started making a little ticking noise a few weeks ago and she had just been turning the radio up, but now the volume doesn't go any higher and the car won't start anymore. And the owner of this car said that it's really easy to unlock, but locking, however, is a different story. The mechanic who got this one up on the lift found the kind of thing that makes you want to take a long walk and think about your life choices. This customer came in because they've had a tire leak for a while and wanted it checked out. And this customer came in and asked for their tires to be patched and stated that they still had a couple thousand miles left on them. The owner of this car had just bought it at an auction for $8,100 and was apparently told it only needed a new transmission. But this is how it looked like underneath. Customer states, "My car has developed some character lately. Kind of vibrates a little when I sit at a red light, but I think it's just the personality of the engine." And this diesel Ford F-250 came in because it wouldn't start after the owner accidentally put AdBlue in the fuel tank instead of the AdBlue tank. This customer came in saying that they had hit what looked like a huge corn dog on their way to work this morning and wanted the mechanics to have a look. The owner of this car came in saying he hit a small rock and wanted to make sure it was all fine. I wonder what a big rock would have done. Customer states, had a flat but fixed it himself, wants to know roughly how many more miles he could drive before needing to fix it again. This truck had been making some pretty interesting sounds for a while, and the neighbor who looked at it a few months back said it was probably just the exhaust. The mechanic got underneath it and found that one rear shock absorber had rusted clean off its mount and the other side had a Bluetooth shock. Customer states, I'm getting a weird smell in the cab. I'm thinking it might be a burnt wire or something. The mechanic who got underneath this one found a custom exhaust installed in red, which was a pretty sporty choice. Even sportier was the decision to point it straight at the gas tank for that ultimate boom effect. This 2002 Chevy Silverado came in for a regular oil change when the mechanic noticed this as the car was being lifted. This car was in after the owner complained about a small steering wheel vibration. And this is exactly why you get a second opinion after another shop says, everything looks fine. And this customer had apparently tried to fix a coolant leak all by himself using some top-grade stop leak. The owner of this car was apparently convinced that if a warning light hasn't come on, nothing can possibly be wrong, so he just wanted the oil and filter change. The mechanic got underneath the car and found the undercarriage looking like this. This customer had their car serviced at another shop 2 weeks ago and now says that the rear end is all over the place. Customer states, I feel every inch of every bump and hole I drive over. Please advise. Hearing a clunking sound from the front for a while, and apparently the owner's uncle had taken a swing at fixing it himself with some fresh metal and a welder. The mechanic found the whole hub being held up by raw optimism. Customer states, car runs rough and doesn't accelerate as it used to. Please advise. The owner of this car had been chasing an alternator problem for weeks, and had apparently called in a favor from a neighbor who's apparently pretty good with electronics. The mechanic got to the battery, checked the voltage, and then touched the alternator and watched the numbers go absolutely all over the place. Customer states, my rear end is all over the road. And this customer came in with a clunking sound after he had done some suspension work on his car. Turns out that he had forgotten to reinstall the bolts on the strut tower. And this engine had been running really rough for the past few weeks, and the mechanic eventually traced it back to the oil pickup tube. The pickup sits at the bottom of the oil pan and is basically the engine's drinking straw, so when it gets blocked, the whole lubrication system starves. This car came in after the owner had been on a trip to the mountains, but while going up a steep hill he heard a loud bang, and then the car just stopped moving. The owner of this car rolled in saying it had a misfire that had been getting worse for a few weeks, and when the mechanics pulled the ignition coils, every single one of them was sitting in a pool of oil. Customer states, "My car is possessed by a demon." Apparently, the mechanic found the issue to be a faulty keyless access unit. The unit fails and starts grounding the ignition circuit by itself. This car came in on a tow truck after the customer claimed to have hit a giant Snickers bar while on his way to pick up his kids from school. I guess you're really not you when you're hungry after all. The owner of this Honda Accord came in saying the rear window has been all blurry and streaky ever since the dealership changed her rear wipers. The mechanic walked around to the back and had a pretty simple explanation for her. Customer states, "My tires have a pimple problem. Please advise." Customer states, "Swapped in a new radiator last weekend. Runs great, but it rattles a little at idle. Is that normal?" This customer's car had been sitting on their lawn for about 2 years and wanted to see how it was looking underneath. This Lexus RX rolled in for its first oil change since 2009. Apparently, the customer thought that the car ran fine, and so she didn't bother with any maintenance other than filling it up with gas and washer fluid. The mechanic who pulled the fuel tank on this Infiniti M45 found it looking like it had been through some kind of surgery at some point, and whoever had done it had done a pretty creative job of putting it back together. And this customer had fixed their exhaust in a very creative way using some tinfoil and hot glue. The owner of this car had apparently been telling himself that the clunking was probably just some gravel in the wheels or maybe just a tiny bit of play in the ball joint. The mechanic found the lower control arm looking like this. Customer states that their 4Runner clunks while driving after having installed new OEM suspension all by themselves. Customer states, "Nephew installed a new battery and fuse box, but car has weird glitches ever since." This car came in with a check engine light, and the mechanic found it had 2 air filters installed on top of each other, a sketchy wiring job on the other side of the engine bay, and a turquoise rubber bulb attached to a hose near the oil cap. This car came in on a tow truck after the owner had been racing their buddy at a stoplight the night before. This 2017 Kenworth T680 semi-truck came in to have some rust fixed on the air tanks, and the technician found that the customer had not been draining them of water properly. And this customer came in saying that his Mercedes has literally started limping. The owner of this car had been complaining about a really bad loss of power for a few weeks, after another shop had apparently given it a clean bill of health. When the mechanic got to the turbo, he found it had been running with a little uninvited guest lodged in the intake the whole time. This Freightliner Cascadia rolled in with quite the oil leak after the truck driver had hit a large rock while driving on the highway. Apparently, the oil tray is made out of plastic on these models, which probably made the whole situation worse. Customer states, "Was driving on the highway and heard a loud bang. Car then started running poorly." This customer came in for an alignment when the mechanic discovered it needed a bit more work than only that. Customer declined all repairs and said he'll take it to another shop that actually listens. Customer states, "Help, I don't know what's going on with my truck. It's been like this ever since my cousin tuned it for me." And this customer rolled in with their truck because their check engine light was on and the truck wouldn't start. Apparently, it had been thoroughly checked by the owner's friend and he couldn't find anything wrong with it. Turns out that it was missing a few parts. Customer states, "I brushed against a curbside." Customer states, accidentally drove over a sign because it said op on it.